Hey there, Phil.
Hey, how's it going, Brandon?
Going good. Nice to see you joining us on the big day.
Yeah, of course. Mike Brown's here, so we got to stop talking about him.
Oh man, what did I do now?
I was joking. We weren't talking about him.
Hey Phil, I like the Colorado Utes, or what's the hat there? You're on mute, sir.
That's all the way from Wyoming.
Um,
Yeah, I don't think it represents any specific thing other than it's one of those hats that if you buy it, some of the proceeds go to the national parks.
cool. Brandon's got a nice grin going. He must be reading everybody's comments.
Yeah,
I'm getting all the PRs and everything opened up here and listed so that we can look over everything.
yeah. VBATS is doing his 11th hour review, like as the meeting starts.
They like doing that, don't? That's not just VBAS, that's everybody.
What?
I will say, Mike, you have been extremely proactive on this one. I appreciate all your feedback. Usually I'm the one that's in the last minute.
Yeah, I'm in panic mode. No, stop, slow down. No, wait. No,
The working group was working when we weren't looking.
Exactly. My bad. Yeah, probably should have been, flyby in those meetings earlier on. But
I think if you had done that, you might have come into it with too much background. And
true.
having so much background, you don't get to look at this from someone that's like, what on earth were you guys working on for all this time? So
exactly.
having feedback from people like that helped.
Yeah, I'm trying to read this and figure it out from what you wrote. That's different than I was there when we wrote it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I pulled out a lot of references to ice cream because I don't think people here understand the ice cream references. So there's been a lot of that.
I just figured it was a silly reference. No, it meant anything.
That was specifically what it was for. It was trying to be the reference that could mean anything, wasn't anything in particular. And so nobody could get upset that we weren't picking their SBOM solution or something like that. So,
it worked. It worked.
Yeah. My alternative to that was just to call it example SBOM. And then it's not which SBOM, it's just an example SBOM.
Okay, so it had nothing to do with Biden's preference for ice cream and
nothing at all for that, no. But I
took
a bunch of them out.
And him requiring SBOMs and all that.
Yeah. Let me do a quick share. I'll probably share the whole time here, but I want to start off by what we changed since last week, just from people that jumped in. And over on image spec, I thought we had one more commit over there. I wonder if I'm missing one. Oops, wrong button there. Reload this page, see if I'm missing one, because I thought we had, yeah, there's the other one. I was like, VBATS, I know you gave me some feedback, so let's see. There we go. So I just updated this from VBATS earlier. I've got the EVP.
Yeah, sorry to sneak in at the last minute. That was until your Slack message, I completely forgot. I didn't realize it. Today's the 25th.
That's the way it happens, isn't it?
So.
Gets us all. So I got those in there. The other one that happened earlier in the week, I just changed the ice cream to generic manifest and example SBOM instead of a flavor. I'm hoping those make more sense people going into the future that haven't seen all the working group stuff. That was it since last week for what we changed in the image spec. So a lot more has been changed in here since the beginning of this whole thing, but for anybody who's been following along, you didn't miss much over here. And then distribution spec over on this side, we did change a fair bit of stuff. We went back to the original specs and conformance over here. We got rid of the separate upgrade requirements and the separate client implementation. Those files got deleted and then they all got folded into the spec.md. So we got a lot of lines just got merged into here. We've got, I think, a whole bunch of various nits and cleanups and whatnot throughout the file. And let's see, a whole bunch of cleanups definitions. Thanks so much on those, Mike. Mike, on this one, do we want to talk about this real quick while we're here? The image index. The comment there was you wanted to change it to a manifest containing an annotated index of image and artifact manifest. And my fear there is if we say that it's just those two, that we're not capturing all use cases out there. And if you're talking, you're on mute.
No, I clicked on the wrong button. This follows from the definition from the way it was specified or currently is specified in the image, index MD, or not in the MD, sorry. There's a list of definitions in the image specification. I think it's in the summary section.
Is it in the summary? Okay.
Not the README, but yeah, I think it's in the actual.
Which one are you thinking of then?
I believe it's in the actual spec, first page of the spec.
Okay.
There you go. Annotated index of image manifest. So basically, I just said and artifact.
Yeah.
Image and artifact.
Do we want to go
either we need to change it here, I guess was my point, or it needs to be changed in both places.
I would lean toward changing it over here to be a little bit more generic. What do others think?
And the way they're saying annotated there, I mean, they're basically saying that, this particular index, it's not necessarily in a sequence, but it is annotated. Right.
In terms of things like platforms and annotations, so you can pick out which descriptor you're thinking of.
You got it. I think they believed at that point that was generic, right? As opposed, and then I guess on the other ones we had things like when you're looking at the image, the list of blobs, for example, they're in a particular order, and so when that's defined, is explained, what kind of index that is. So in ordered list, ordered list, ordered index, that kind of thing. So really all I was doing was normalizing what you had written in your version of these definitions with this, so that we didn't lose what was written there at that point in time.
Makes sense. My preference would be to come back to the image spec and to change this line in the future in a separate PR. But I want to leave that out to. Go ahead.
I think when we wrote these definitions, we did actually try to make sure that they didn't, conflict with each other at any one particular point in time. If you're going to change it in one, I think it behooves us to make sure that the image maintainers also agree with the change in definition, if that makes sense, or just don't write the definition in the distribution spec.
My suspicion is we still want the definition in the distribution spec, because if otherwise people are going to say what all these words mean.
Right. So my suggested changes here, just to basically to pick it up and bring it over, then if we're going to put it here, and then if you want to change it in the owning specification, then we change it there and then change it here in another PR.
Sasha, I see you got your hand up.
I'm just coming back to I think we can take this probably one option is to kind of break this up a little bit, because what we're trying to do is add the artifact manifest to the existing specification. Making the manifest definition generic might be beyond what we want to have within the scope. So do you think we can get the artifact manifest in and then maybe open a PR to kind of unify with making generic manifests across everything? Does that make sense? Or do you want to kind of like take both of it together? It's
That's
just like scoping what we want to, basically just capping what we want to do. And for this working group is what I was trying to get to.
Yes, AJ, there's two parts of it, right? The distribution specification attempts to already be generic with respect to the various types of manifests. So it's valid what he was trying to do here. The problem is that it's for a specific term, image index, and that was already defined in another specification. So I'm trying not to step on that, on that spec.
Yeah, makes sense. I mean, I'm okay if we take artifact manifest and we follow up with the generic manifest, if that makes things easier.
I'm just looking at the order of operations. Do we want to change our PR that's got the definition over in distribution, or do we want to say for the 1 day, 1 week that it's going to take us get a separate PR to go through here, merge this as is right now, and then send in a separate PR over the image spec? And I'll say, as one of the image spec maintainers, I'm comfortable being out of sync right now.
Well, I was just skimming over the image spec API, image spec PR 934 to see if we actually added in any of this stuff in that example where yeah, there. And we don't actually modify any of this, so high level components of the spec include so the current 934 doesn't even touch this.
Right. We added an additional example, Vincent, but yeah, we're missing some changes, I guess, in the higher level portion. You're right.
Is a punch list being kept somewhere of like these kind of follow-ups?
Yeah, to-dos, that would be fair. I mean, if you want to put it to
it's good and classic to get things merged and say we'll follow up with a PR, but then with a lot of these resolved comment threads, it's easy to miss.
Yep.
I'm picking up there, and I'm also going to throw it in notes.
You want to just put to-dos in the record where we're making the changes that need to be synced back? Or do you want a separate issue? You want to open in issues, Vince?
Even if we just make a comment, like you're saying, in a to-do, something that's not quite going to get resolved or collapsed
exactly
in the issue.
Yeah.
I threw in our me notes. I've also got a separate set of notes I'm taking, and I'll take that as an agenda item for me, action item for me. Sound good? So if we go that direction, Mike, are you comfortable marking this one as resolved over here for now?
Yes, with the to-do, that'd be fine. Yeah.
Okay. Cool. So got those. The one that bugged me earlier, and we are not tied to this at all, we can come back later on to a PR on this one, was changing the word artifact to object.
In some cases, yeah.
We didn't have many in here. I actually cleaned out a few that
I saw.
Like we said, artifact verification, I changed to content verification, things where I could find
sometimes
an easier
it's
word.
content. I think that was fair. Sometimes it's content, sometimes it's object. I didn't like it at first, but the more I thought about it, yeah, this is good. It's what was meant originally by the word artifact in this spec, right? So
yeah, it's a collection of the manifest and the blobs together. And so if there's a better word, we can always come back, change it. I think it's only going to change like 4 or 5 spots in the whole file.
Right. But it's also key to recognize that now that we have an artifact manifest, we don't really need to carry, the original generic artifact term in the spec.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And that was the problem. As soon as we started using artifact for something else, it gets really confusing really quick.
Yeah.
All right. And then, yeah, some other definitions we pulled in, just making sure we're defining all of our terms. Refers, refers and referrers, people complain about that, and I completely understand why.
Just
The-
the little stutter on the in the English. That's almost why when I was reading through and I see Lockie or whoever's already commented on it, but like the field refers versus referers.
Right.
Like, would it be, and I get it that there's already a lot of work and back behind this, but like, would refers as a field be almost intuitive to say refers to? Like, yes, in a definition or a string of like defining what the field is, that's fine. But if the field itself even was like, in the refers field, would it be too easy for somebody to say the refers, referers, like, what like, I don't know. Too much of a human problem there.
Or the referee, or
Yeah, but like, is this field refers to this other manifest or this other descriptor? I mean, like refers to versus referers. I don't know.
you're right, Vince.
It's a nit, but it's just one of those little.
It is always refers to, and you're right. That would clarify it.
Yeah, it's also the directional nature of this we were trying to capture a little bit in here, and it's not easy to find the right words.
Do we want to modify the name to refers to? Is that what we're discussing, or?
I know that sounds like a big change. It's just like if that's what it means, because actually when I read through it at first, I was thinking it was a list of referers rather than this thing refers to something like that, like the directionality of it. So it's probably a nit in some ways, but it's also a change that trickles out.
Yeah, and it's also sometimes used in the plural because it's a field in the descriptor. And if you've got a list of descriptors, right, these are refers.
Well, those are the referrers.
Right.
When it's the list. What I'll suggest is that we say refers field instead of refers to, but I want to double check everywhere we use this and make sure that looks right across the board. Do we feel comfortable saying refers field instead of refers to, or do we really like refers to?
Well, it's not always a field, right? Sometimes it's a descriptor. Or is that
the descriptor is a field, though, in this case, within the manifest.
True. That's right. It's the artifact type. It's the never mind.
Yeah, this is used within the artifact manifest and the image manifest.
Yeah, so I'm like reading right now on the. I don't know. I'm up for others. It's just if it's confusing now, it'll be confusing later, and English and we did, since we're using English, the easiest of all languages, then making sure it's as clear as possible. I'm joking. English is not an easy language. That's my point.
Again, I guess the long-winded version is refers descriptor field to reference, right?
Yeah, it's like a refers field and a refers list. Referrers list.
Yeah. Yeah, and you even define it as the refers field in its own definition, which is sort of a no-no. You'll walk that no-no out by saying refers field.
Where was the no-no?
In the second sentence on line 78, the refers field
is included in the image. Yeah. You want me to capitalize this?
I'm just saying it's a no-no to use yourself in the definition of yourself, typically.
Well, we still have it down like
It's
each
just
one
an
of these is saying
Yeah.
the digest are defined. So we'll do that, but I think we need to capitalize it and say, hey, the thing we're describing here is included in but we need to make sure we're saying it is this thing right here that we're talking about when we say it right. Say it again
Not,
here.
not some other association, right?
All right. I'm adding that for a future PR to follow up on both of those to potentially say field and list for each of these to get those linked together. I believe we've used those in most places, but I just want to double check all the spots. And let's see. Artifact layout, layer to a blob, artifact to blob. So a few little terminology changes in there. Artifact file to blob transfer. I'm not even sure I remember doing some of these, so might have had a few other people submitting some of these. And when downloading artifact to downloading a blob. So I think these are all just PR feedback, probably most of them from you, Mike. And let's see, artifact object, that was capturing some of these. Object capitalized because it was one of our defined words. Is that the right way to do it, VBATs, or?
It doesn't have to be capitalized.
So I'm sorry, I was still reading something.
It doesn't have to be capitalized, but you can put the little tildes on both sides, so it'll be italicized.
Italic instead of capital. I was
I
I was
mean,
doing capital because it
italic
was
or
defined.
code, not tilde, but tick. Or are you want it italicized? Or?
It doesn't matter. Whatever the
Okay.
common use is across. So that's bolded, I guess, would be nice.
Bolded or something, no, annotated, denoted.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Yeah, maybe that's fine. I just actually had to scroll down and scroll back up when I saw it capitalized.
Yeah, anywhere I did capital is because I was using one of the defined terms at the top. So I can change those to doing bold if that makes more sense, or italic.
Yeah, whatever the common mechanism is for referencing those words, just make it common.
I think I don't think we quite had a pattern of, not that we couldn't have a pattern of capitalizing them, but
I think we are doing
I
it
think
some places.
some places will like put it in ticks, so it looks like a code block referring to some concept, or
Yeah.
so maybe italicize or bolding or whatever. It's fine. Again, a nit, but
I would lean towards not changing the case of the definition, even if you were, unless the definition itself is capitalized in some way, right?
So just go lowercase everywhere. Do we even put it within italics or just leave it lowercase?
So
I
I think
can
the
do it
point
either way.
was we don't use, by default, we didn't use capitalization either for any of the other definitions, of defined terms, sorry.
Yeah.
So.
All right, this one still left unhandled here. Registry should accept a manifest with the refers field that references something doesn't exist. The goal here for people who don't want to read what I wrote, if you push a signature, we want to make sure that you don't have to have the image there in advance so that someone could push the image after the signature is pushed to a registry. That way the registry can say, make sure that only signed images are up on the server, something along those lines. So we're just sorting out the order of operations. And so the wording here was just to say, hey, if you're missing a blob, then maybe you're going to reject it. But if you're missing the refers descriptor target, don't fail on that one. And at least saying a should.
Yeah, I guess the question, of course, is, well, what about the opposite, right? It's
What do you mean? Opposite?
well, it seems what I wrote here, I'm trying to remember exactly, but it means the same as may reject. It's saying should accept, but only if it doesn't exist. And then the way I'm reading that is it means the same as may reject the manifest with the refers.
Well, I mean, have we, in the conformance tests, we've already seen that some registries will reject other fields, and even if we have buy-in from folks for that to change, then why they reject it, who knows? But on this particular one of like the nuance of if a object doesn't exist that it refers to.
And that's sort of what he's saying here. He wants.
They should accept it with the refers field,
Yes.
and they should also accept it if the thing it refers to is not
not there.
present. And the
Exactly.
reason that this got chewed around on a lot was basically came down to how am I supposed to garbage collect anything? If I can't see that it refers to something, like if I have an object on the registry and nothing refers to it, and if I have objects that refer to something that doesn't exist, because what if I'm pushing a bunch of, what if somebody chooses some object, maybe not an SBOM, but some big ass object that they don't want to put in their main registry. They have a special registry for big ass objects. So you have a bunch of things that refer to a digest that are of things in a special big ass object store.
Okay.
How do you eventually say, when garbage collecting that big ass object store, what all refers to this? And they're completely in disparate registries. So this came down to like last time this really got zoomed in on was around a garbage collection story.
Well, from that perspective, Vince, would it be appropriate to say it must initially accept, but then can garbage collect with some, widely known process for garbage collecting the artifacts that do not have, that are referring to a manifest that does not exist?
I think that's the looseness, that just saying it like a registry should. Because if, Amazon, Google, whoever, Azure come along and say, we just can't wrangle this unless there's somehow to, connect these dots later. Have some
Right.
special field that points to where and whatever, what other registry it's actually in that we can validate that the object even exists. I don't know what.
And
It gets
if they
complicated.
do reject it, those artifacts could not exist in some situations, and then we'd have a situation where what's the point of using refers API if you can't trust the registry to keep artifacts that aren't in an image graph, right?
No, it sounds like our problem, but eventually that's not our problem.
Yeah, where I was going to go with it is,
Being too strict makes it prohibitive, and making it loose enough where people get creative makes it innovative.
yeah, and
That's a decision on the API, right? We're basically saying we're going to leave these refers to be optional.
well, we haven't defined garbage
Yes.
collection anywhere in here. And so that's always been left up as an exercise for the registry to sort out. I would say that more than likely the way they always sort this out is either you're going to have a repo that says, don't GC anything in here, and that's how you're going to refer to external stuff. Or you're
Right.
going to have a repository that says, do a GC, but give them an hour to update with these things, just like you would with a blob. If you pushed a blob early before the manifest, you would give it an hour before you delete the blob.
I guess my read of this is where I started asking those other questions, Brandon, now that I remember around, okay, well then I guess I'm going to need to push my artifacts right after the things that they point to. And I'm going to need to list them probably also in the index to make sure that they're in the graph and they won't get garbage collected until after the entire, index has been requested to be deleted. I was just trying to understand, if it's not a requirement for the registry to keep them around, how would I, be able to have a definitive client model for pushing these things and pulling them, and they'll be there.
Yeah, the client model for the stuff that I've used a lot of times is you push your image first and then you come back and you push your signature on it. But I think we're trying to leave the door open for someone that wants to say, this repository can't have any unsigned images in it. if
unsigned.
someone comes up with that kind of security
kind of-
requirement.
Okay.
There is a scenario where we want to push the signature first before we actually push the image. So that's kind of why the gap, like you said, the timing of pushing the referrer first and then push the image is there. If we make this like a mandatory requirement, even for GC, it makes it hard to implement that use case.
Okay.
Cool.
That's
So-
fair. So then I guess it would be fair to say here there's a to-do for patterns of use of refers that would be must cases for those certain patterns. We're just not defining enough examples yet, right?
I'm not quite sure I follow where you're going with that. I
Well,
feel like we've kind of gotten to the point we've got a lot of agreement that we should leave it as it should right now, to leave registries for the flexibility. What's the future follow-up that you're looking at?
Well, the flexibility means I will not be able to have a client that can work with any set of registries that are compliant with this version of the specification. I will have no guarantee for which registries will or won't do it. I'll have to test with each individually. So basically, you'll have different implementations
Oh,
for the push API on what's going to be there when I go to pulls and refers, API requests.
so basically it's just about making it a must, right?
That's what I'm at. If it's not a must, then it's an optional feature in push, right, to support refers or not. That's how I read that. Which means it's an experimental feature almost, the way I'm reading it.
But this is already a must that falls under the provision of somebody adopting the refers API at large.
Yeah.
Because if they, in the meantime, so let me just, so for that particular angle,
Yeah.
how does this affect if somebody pushes a manifest today using the backwards compatibility at the bottom? So say I'm using an older registry or whatever, somebody who hasn't added this yet, and I push
In that
a
case, you'll be able
manifest,
to.
it doesn't block that at all. So we could have must here, and it basically says, cool, you've chosen to implement refers page, refers API, flip to page 97 and let your adventure continue, and then they hit this must. Choose your own adventure kind of style. Like, this is not going to affect backwards compatibility is my question.
I think backwards compatibility is going to be the must scenario, because in those backward compatible cases, you can push that index ahead of time.
Michael has his hand raised
Yep.
up.
So I think that was one of the things that I was thinking about, was just raise your hand for long enough and someone else will say it. The other thing was what is there other scenarios other than backwards compatibility that mean that registries need to accept manifests that refer to things that haven't been pushed yet? I think the way that I've been thinking about it, usually you would push the image first. Like, I don't know, a policy that just says a signature has to exist that references the image isn't really doing a lot, right? If you're not actually validating the signature.
There might be an assumption of validation, but
I guess it was just a little, it was a little vague. It sounded like there was thought that went behind it, and
Yeah.
it didn't really make sense to me. I was trying to figure it out, and yeah.
I mean, I think like the way it's written right now, clients should not rely on registries accepting a manifest with a refers field that references.
That's the way I'm
does
reading
not
it.
exist, right? Like,
That's what I'm reading, right?
yeah, which I think is fine, personally, but I'm not.
Yeah.
It does mean like maybe this just doesn't need to be part of this at all, or maybe it should be a must.
So what would that mean to a client, right? If I do a push on that artifact and it gets rejected, does that mean I need to pull the refers off? Or should I ask the user, do you want to push it, right, without the refers and get the artifact up there?
Yeah.
I don't know. Right?
I mean, so from like one thing I was thinking is like it's kind of nice to get the validation if you have something that references an image and you, I don't know, accidentally push it to the wrong repository. It's kind of nice to get an error saying, hey, maybe you pushed it to the wrong repo. Like usually the image should exist, and so being able to give an error to a client when it doesn't is kind of nice.
Pros and cons both ways. To one of my
Regardless-
comments earlier, we can say must right now and always turn it back to a should in the future if we thought so.
I mean, I think there's also two things of one, a registry should support manifests with refers fields that reference a manifest that does not exist, because like you could delete a manifest or you have this upgrade scenario where you have to, but that doesn't necessarily mean you have to support or you have to accept new manifests with refers fields that reference a manifest that does not exist.
That's a good point. It doesn't really talk about the time value of this.
So I'm leaning toward must.
I assumed it was on the push and this is a part of that, but you seem to indicate that maybe it's initially accept and continue to accept, right? Initially and continue.
Yeah, I mean, the way it's written is definitely around push, but there is kind of two cases, which is, is this a situation that can exist? Yes. Is this something that we have to accept new cases of? Maybe not.
Maybe the answer here is a little more explanation. In lowercase, the initial should, and then in the cases, you could talk about when it must and when it should, right, or may not. A little more detail, maybe.
I'm almost leaning toward going with your must, just because the more we talk about it, the more I think about there's going to be registries that have this in pre-existing data. There's going to be things pushed with the fallback mechanism before registries adopt the spec. And so there's
Right.
going to be a lot of cases where the data is already there from clients that were following it, and then to have the registry change that on them.
You could make it a must initially accept, right? And then you could add an additional sentence saying something to the effect, may garbage collect if after a certain period of time, it's no longer, it is still not referring to an existing manifest.
Yeah, this is an accept of a push. So this doesn't really get into the garbage collect scenario where I think we've always allowed that pretty much anywhere. You must accept a blob, but you can
Right.
always GC the blob later on.
Okay.
I
So,
mean,
yeah.
I think that there's a lot of value in being able to reject. I don't see a lot of scenarios where people are going to want to push manifests referencing images that don't exist. I think it's a
I'll
state
throw
we
a-
should allow. I just don't know why it's an action we have to allow.
I'll throw a scenario out at you, which is if I recursively copy an image between two places and it's multi-platform, everything else, I go bottom up. So I go all the way down the tree, start copying the blobs, and start copying the image manifest, then copy the index. And when I include refers in there, I'll go bottom up as well. And so I'll copy all the refers and then the image manifest above it.
Mhm.
And it's,
But you could just as easily do it. in
I
the
could change the order of the
opposite
code
order,
there.
right?
Yeah. It's not a firm requirement. I could change the order of the code if need be.
Because I think the scenario of, hey, I push something that refers to a manifest, and maybe if I push it to the wrong repo, getting an error is I do think is a nice customer experience there, user experience.
And it's, I think it's definitely important to figure this out, right? We, in the past, when we did the directed graph ordering, right, we made sure that you didn't have any dead references, right? And it seems like what you're telling me now is that it must reject a manifest, but that would require a certain sequence when it pushes always, right? Which is doable, but you just have to decide if that's the pattern you want to use.
We're changing this from must accept to must reject now.
No, I'm just saying, you got to decide what are you going to support asynchronous artifact pushes, right? Where they can be pushed before the image is up there, or the other artifact is referring to, right? Another artifact.
My knee-jerk reaction here is to go with must, and then if we need to change it later on, we can always come back and say, yeah, maybe that was a little too strict.
I think it would be useful if we make it a must to explain more detail on that, right?
Do we need that today before merging or add that to our punch list?
In the punch list, yeah.
Okay.
Because I think if you force them to accept it, that's fine, but then they need some ability to collect that before the connection is up or something to that effect, right? Remember we talked about when I'm pushing this all in one sequence with one connection, you could have a process where you allow these things to happen, and then at the end when there's a disconnect, you could go ahead and garbage collect anything that doesn't have absolute links.
Yep.
Yeah.
So we want to get garbage collection descriptions into this file. That's a slippery slope with OCI, I feel like. Once you define it one place, people are going to want it everywhere.
Or transactional or something yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole problem with the new refers, right? In the refers API, it's a time-based thing because it's not in the graph of the image. That it's an n-ary graph pointing to manifests, right?
Yeah.
And that makes it more complicated than in the other APIs. It puts an added complexity, I think, that needs some description here. So.
Okay. So far, so good. Moving on. I'm being sensitive of time. I want to make sure we actually get a merge in today.
All right. Oh wait, what? Is this where I ask for a continuance?
I think so. But it was Amy saying no about
No continuance. There's the lawyer coming out.
No.
I'm
Okay.
kidding. Keep going.
Okay. If you'll refresh that page, this is back shedding at this point, but as you are talking, it does right up above. Oh, as you can reset your cursor. Damn.
Not that one. Here we go. Oh no,
No, we
you
already did
passed
that.
that. You're
Oh,
coming here.
just yeah. And too bad we can't return message codes as accept it and return a status code, but that would be a whole different discussion. Okay. Well, we might have to like figure out about this one, or add it to a particular punch list item, or even change it to must for now, and then follow up before it's tagged as a release. Scroll button.
Which way? Down?
I guess down.
Okay, let's see. Cover decline implementations. That's good. Like getting rid of that. Need to lowercase some letters here. And pushing manifest with refers. This is kind of like a whole list here of the client process, what they do. And so if the client sees when it's trying to do a image or an artifact manifest, it has a refers field, and the refers API gives back a 404. This is kind of a logical workflow of how the client is maintaining that image, the index up on the server that we're looking at. So I don't remember everything that changed in here. I think some of this was just moving the client field over, but I think there was also some rephrasing of things, changing stuff from like the index to refers list, just to make it clear that that was kind of what this tag was pointing to. And let's see, tag schema. I have a lot of pointers for the tag schema.
Yeah, this is one
Are
point
we
like
comfortable with point release?
yeah, because then I was like scrolling through looking, and even with like the backwards compat below, like I'm guessing there was a discussion around this for it to have been included.
I'm leaning toward it being a point release, but talk me into why you would want to see it as a 2.0 release.
No. Like I don't see anything breaking. It's just, is it just enough of a feature that this gets into why it was pretty difficult that we chose semantic versioning for the spec. If somebody doesn't adopt the refers API, and if there's some other iteration in the future that they want to see, and they get compliant with the 1. whatever version. But I guess why 1.1 versus a 1.0 whatever.
I felt like this was a big enough shift in there, new enough feature that it felt useful to call it 1.1, but I'm always willing to discuss.
Anybody have particular opinion or insight on this? Strong feelings?
I think, Vince, we don't have much of a choice because of the 1.1 we're going to need in the image spec for the new fields. It's pretty significant, and you got a new manifest type that we have to support, right? I don't think you really got a choice in the image spec. And then it would be nice, I think, I hate to say nice, but I think we should keep the distribution spec at the same point release as the image spec, since they're sort of, two in a box. But even if you could get away with it being backwards compat without, bringing it in, I think we do need, because we've changed the definitions and we've added, additional descriptions that are only included in the 1.1 image. I think we're sort of stuck here.
Yeah, we've added APIs, we've added new data types, new manifest, but everything is still backward compatible, non-breaking change. So
not
it felt like
2.
1.1 and not 2.0 and not 1.0.x.
Yeah, that pretty much yells minor release to me too. Like you got a feature, you have things coming in, nothing's backward compatible, breaking. It's more than a bug fix.
Yeah, if we could have done it with the extension API, I think that would have maybe been different,
Hmm.
but even there, we probably would have needed a point release for the extension API, right? So we can get clients to query it.
Giving an emphatic yes to that one, VBATs. Let's see. Fetching a list of refers. You're not clear to references. VBATs, how long have you been here? Just kidding.
Dead serious. Not even playing devil's advocate. I'm just dumb.
Yeah. It is a digest at this point.
Well, so then if you scroll down, because even in the right below here of like the value of reference, and then the examples that get pasted. Oh, well,
It won't be in, it might not be in the diff. I'm like
I was about
one
to
of the
say
last
this
8
is-
commits.
oh, I was about to say their stuff's not showing on yours. Everywhere that it's referred to as this, like, reference, it doesn't actually show what it is or a description of like can I just put arbitrary strings in there? If I was a new implementer looking at this, and thankfully I haven't looked at this close enough in so long that I'm completely unclear on what that value would be.
That one's already defined in the existing spec, VBATs.
And maybe it needs to point to it.
Maybe pull a
Yeah.
manifest by reference, although really, I think we need to say digest. Because that's what we're keying off of. So that's a fix that's needed. We need to change that string to digest. And add that to a punch list.
I had to look. I can't remember, Vince, if some of those references were, things like, repository / SHA or something to that effect. I can't remember.
So that'll be on the punch list.
Oh, so name, no, that's in name. Never mind.
It might be a little dense here, just as digest or tag, right?
That
is.
was like now that Tianan said that and it got my brain churning, that was actually the confusion in the past when we've used the word reference, is because in some places it means digest, in some places it means tag.
Yeah,
for
and I
us-
think in the workflows, it sort of defines, like for poll, for example, must be either digest or tag. In our use case, yeah,
So
exactly, right where you're
We
looking
need
at. Yep.
this definition when we're down.
I think so, yeah. Because like when Mike said that, I was like, yeah, right, that's in there. And then Tianan said it's in the spec. So then I went to the browser, and sure enough, it's in there, but contextual based on the workflow.
Right.
So the intent is to allow this refers API to reference a tag and for that to return the references of the digest that tag points to.
And no, the referers API should only take a digest.
Yeah, if you look at the definition of refers, it literally says that it's only a digest.
We start with digest for now. We knew we could always open up later if we needed to.
Yeah, so it's just to be
So,
called out
so
in the
yeah,
same
good-
in the same
good
format.
catch. Yeah, good catch. You can always add it later, right? You can change it from reference to, from digest to reference. Good catch, Vince.
Make sure we define that.
Didn't intend for it to be a good catch. I was just confused.
Well, are you going to define it or are you just going to change it to digest?
Going to do both. We're going to change it to digest and define it. Because in each section, I think we're defining those, right? That's what we're just saying.
You want to make that refers reference then, as opposed to the other references that could be either.
Do I want to make refers reference? Name refers, change this to digest, and then at the top of the section, say digest is X.
Right. Yeah, I think we can always add, add tags later.
Yep. That was our entire goal, of it start strict, and then we can always, if someone has a use case, we realize we need it and we want it, we can add that.
If you're going to do that, you might want to add some text there explaining that, we may be adding tags later. So that when they're developing their code in the registry and the clients, they can keep that in mind.
Okay.
Do you want them to reject? I can't remember if you had any specification there saying that they should reject. If it's not,
we really say everything should be a 200 or a 404. We might need to say like another error code in there. We don't want a 404 to come back if it's a just a missing reference, something that's missing that doesn't exist yet. We want that to come back as an empty list. But yeah, we might want to find, I don't know if it's a 500 or some other reject message in there of some kind.
That would definitely make the refers API more complex if it supported digest. I'm sorry, tags.
Yeah, that's why we just started with digest for now.
Okay.
All right, I think in here in the last week, all this just terminology, and we wanted to make this lowercase so I can just change image and artifact manifest to lowercase all through this. Add that to a punch list item there. And let's see. Ref does not exist. Query result with no matching. So this is, let's see, the ref does not exist, it may return that. This is if you push something up. So if you push your signature up in advance and say, here's my signature for an image that doesn't exist yet, the registry can respond by saying, hey, there's just nothing that references that digest that you gave me. But once that image is finally pushed and that reference exists, then you need to return the signature in your results. So the order of pushing shouldn't affect whether you get that signature in the future. Phrasing that properly is challenging. And this, Mike, if you remember what you were chatting about there, feel free to jump in.
Well, it seemed like the focus of the work group was on the the use pattern where I'm pushing my, a priori pushing my image index, right? And all the manifests and blobs. And then I'm going to add artifacts later on. It seemed to be the primary case. But now that we've got in image index a list of image manifests and artifact manifests, it seemed like there was, an opportunity here to be able to push all of my images first, and then push my artifacts pointing to those images, and then push my index with the artifacts listed. And then I would have a digest with a full graph for everything I needed to be able to pull all the artifacts for this particular, image index.
Someone can do that. We're not preventing it with what we're defining here. The reason we stayed away from that from the working group standpoint was we were looking at two requirements. One is the ability to be able to add metadata to the image after it's been pushed by the originator. And the second was if you want to copy this across registries, but you don't want that metadata, how can you strip it without changing the digest?
Yeah,
So-
the use pattern I was talking about, you would be able to copy it just as you do today, an index.
You can copy it, but you can't change it when you copy it without changing the digest.
Correct. And the only thing that was, I think, missing from being able to use that really is the concept of, well, what if I need the artifact to reference the index, right? That index wouldn't be there. I wouldn't know what the digest is, and you have that recursion problem. So it made sense to me in that case that you might have a model where the refers, if it's null, it means it's going to refer to the index in which it is included, or the manifest in which it is included in that case. Okay. So if you had that one additional use, right, where if the refers is not set, but you have an artifact listed in the index, then you would have a graph, right? And that artifact would in fact, because it doesn't refer to one of the sub, manifests, it would be for this,
Yeah.
right, index.
I'm going to say that's a use case that we weren't optimizing for. And so I don't want to necessarily drop it in here. Someone could do it if they wanted to.
I see two kinds of customers here, right? I see customers who are going to want to make sure that they have a digest and they have a full package for all of their artifacts that they're pushing up, whether they're signatures or scan results or, SBOMs. And another set of customers that are taking an existing set of images and, adding extended attributes, if you will, right? These extended artifacts that point to the images that already exist in the registry. I think there's two patterns in these different customer sets. A bank, for example, probably doesn't want you to be pulling artifacts that talk about their images. I'm just saying, you're going to have different use patterns here, and that's what I was trying to express in that comment.
Yep. Being sensitive of time, seeing a bunch of people that have to drop off. Might have already lost a bunch of them, but Sajay, between you and me and anybody else that wants to chime in, and Mike too, do we want to handle this offline before next week's meeting after we finish up today? I'm good to keep going for a little bit, but I just want to be sensitive if anybody needs to drop if we want to fix this stuff and get it merged after the meeting. Does that sound good?
I can stay. I'm out next week, so it'd be good to kind of make some.
Yeah, no, I want to get it done today as well if we can, but it doesn't. What I'm going at is I don't necessarily think we have to do it during this meeting if you don't want to, but I'll keep going. Yeah, let's see. I think we answered VBAS's questionnaire already. Unavailable stuff, note, warning. He wants red flags in here. Add this to a punch list. So as soon as we merge this, we'll lose a bunch of these details. And let's see, otherwise a bunch of this was pulling in a lot of the upgrade and the client stuff when we moved files over. So we got rid of the client implementation upgrading. This was just pulling some of the content over. And then, yeah, we finished. So the big thing I want to do, we've got the punch list. I think we're comfortable doing a bunch of these things later on. Do we want to squash everything into one giant commit, push that up to our PR and merge that instead of merging a bunch of individual commits?
I think
Folks like
squash
that.
with co-authors is what we did for extensions. It's fine to just have all the co-authors so that the attribution happens and one single commit might be easier. So that's
Is
okay.
that done in this side
the-
or is that done
In the
in,
commit header, it's done in the commit header, Brandon. You can just add a list of
Yeah,
co-authors.
authors on the bottom.
the commit header, in the commit message?
There's a commit.
I think when I squash it, it does that too. If I do it from the
Yes.
command line.
Correct.
So that was where I was
And
going
if
to
you
go with it.
miss- and if you miss any because of that bubble, you can always manually add in the co-authors.
Yeah, I rebased a bunch of stuff, so let's try one, see if I mess it up. I've got a backup branch just in case I do, but from the playground PR, including our feedback from the day, I'm going to go back to the upstream main that we got out there.
I can't remember. There might be an option on the squash for retaining authors. You'll find out.
That goes for VI. All right, so if we do this massive squash, I was just going to keep all the sign offs in here and I was going to change the phrasing. I had a little blurb set aside from before.
Yeah.
Just saying, hey, this is the working group. And then I'll keep all the sign offs in here between all of these. It'll get faster as I get farther through here because we're going to repeats. Yay, repeats.
Yeah, sometimes the check tools like VBES won't accept multiple sign-offs, but will accept a co-auth. We'll find
Interesting.
out.
Well, I can always redo it again if we have to. Let's see. Sorry, I want to make sure I
Yeah,
don't
it's easy.
mix the email address here. All right, I think that is all of them.
You probably need an extra line after the, no, never mind.
In there. We're good. All right. Push, this is going to go up to the playground. And this is going to go to the PR branch. I think I have, you guys are going to see my fun, do not screw things up method. It's the flag on there.
Always interesting to see somebody's workflow.
I do that because I don't want to accidentally overwrite other people's stuff. Set, and this is the remote for playground. Okay, now I can push it. And this is where I need to change something else. Need to use my GIF. This one gets super boring for everybody, right? Can't do that. What would I do for that one, huh? Ta-da. Okay, let's see if that took it. Should see over here now. Over on image. Yay, one commit. One ginormous commit. And does it pass DCO? DCO, it passes. Yay.
All right.
And no funny files or anything in there. This looks like everything we submitted, including all the people's requests in there. So yeah. I should have went over here and
Just
approved it.
to-dos and should be getting close. Yeah.
But I'll throw my approval over there. So that handles image spec. And I'll go do the same thing over on distribution spec.
Yep. It'd be nice to get some feedback from Steve-O and John and
I was
these.
happy to get feedback from yourself and VBATs. And Phil has been quiet, but I haven't seen him screaming and panicking and wanting to stab the screen. So I feel like that's a good sign.
Yeah, I just trust Michael Brown when he tells me things are good.
I didn't say LGTM yet, Phil.
All right. Well, no, different.
I think.
Different Mike Brown.
Oh, the other Mike Brown. Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
Yeah, he actually works here. So
I know.
I only go to places where I can work with a Mike Brown, so keeps my employment fairly limited. But
I got you.
The other option is you go somewhere and convince all the Mike Browns to show up wherever you go, Phil. Okay. That is not what I was looking for. I did something wrong.
It looks like that one gives you a chance to change each wording of each commit.
I typed R instead of S.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I'll be here a second. The good thing is this gives everybody a chance to put their green checks on the other one. Okay, let's try this again. Squash, not reword. You can tell I've done a few of these too many times. All right, here we go. Get our magic text up top. Working group. Give everybody credit. Josh did a lot of stuff on this one, including multiple email addresses. Hopefully all those numbers are the same. Oh, I didn't do my little magic trick over here. There it goes. Distribution spec is ready for review now. One commit. One massive commit. With a punch list we will follow up with.
Brandon, I think we might have to change it to co-authored because GitHub would pick up only the first sign off and things like that. So I've pasted an example of how the co-authored was written.
Like that.
Yeah.
Did DCO trip up on any of these? I didn't see DCO tripping up. But but I can definitely do that if we want to. City travel system. DCO gave a green. Still want me to do it?
If you look at the commit, it only shows the first one. That's why.
Yeah. So to fix this right here, authored in this.
Right. So if you look at the previous comment, it'll show all the authors as well.
So I think that is in. Go away soon. Okay. And so that just needs to go on the message itself.
I think so. Yeah, that's what we did last time.
Okay. Should I keep all of them signed off as well, or just have one sign off and everything else go off?
I would recommend you sign off. I mean, you're the one doing the PR, so that makes sense. Just have everybody else as co-authored.
And do we want that sign off on the end?
Right.
Like so. See if that looks better for us.
I think you dropped
people
someone's
authored.
name. You got Josh in there twice.
What's that?
I think you dropped someone's name and ended up with Josh twice or something. Yeah.
Josh had his name in there 2 different ways.
Oh, okay.
So I was keeping that string like that. Now let's see if I broke DCO doing that. DCO is still happy. Not digging. Okay, so that's one side. Let me go back and fix this one on image spec. Alrighty. We have co-authors.
There you go.
Awesome.
You're just going to go back through and add punch list to do type things, and then one
I've
more.
got a punch list from our meeting today, and so I will go through and make a separate PR on that one and get that submitted up.
Sure, and whatever else was dangling, I guess, on the.
Yep. Okay. This one.
That'll work. Yeah, as long as we're merging with to-dos, that indicates that we will make more PRs to these before they get finalized.
Yeah, it's not tagged. I think the big thing about this, we want to get it a little bit more visible for people to start testing it and give us actual implementation feedback of saying, hey, we tried this out and it worked.
Yep.
This call is recorded, and whatever we say, we assume it to be binding. So yes, we will submit the follow up with the to-do list. I think that's something that we should agree on, even if we don't put it in this PR or comments in it.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what we were talking about earlier, Sanjay, that we would actually put the punch list in the spec somewhere for changes
The
that are
punch list
still
in the spec. I've been putting them in
okay.
our I've been dropping them in our meeting notes over in
Hey, just-
HackMD.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with an open issue either way. It's fine, you know, but
I think we can immediately open an issue and close it off as a requirement in some way, if that helps.
yeah, it's fine either way. I think Vince was thinking, you know, in line, but that's okay either way.
Yeah, I mean, there's a milestone for 110, so. Well,
Yeah.
at least on distribution, so. Open an issue and put it in there and just gate release on that.
Yeah. Just so we don't, I think the key thing was, let's not lose anything, you know.
Yeah, right.
No big deal.
All right, I gotta drop, but thanks for all the work on this.
All right.
Really
The
good stuff.
only, the big blocking one over here is Mike, you've got your change on distribution spec.
Yeah, as soon as I see the issue or
So open up the issue with our punch list.
comment, yeah, as soon as I see wherever the punch list is going, that's fine. I'll be able
Okay.
to.
I'll copy it from the
LGT.
list into an issue and get that opened up.
All right, man.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Cheers.
Take care.
Thanks, friend. Thanks, Mike.
Blessings.